views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those of the station.
Hello, Philippines. This is Eric Lecain with World News Jam. We bring you the most interesting stories from around the world each week. We just don't give you the news, but we tell you the story behind the news, as well as read and answer your questions in an entertaining and easy to understand way. So please join us on DZRJ 810 AM Radio Bandito TV and get yourself updated with all the interesting news of the week from around the world right here on DZRJ's World News Jam.
Watch and listen to World News Jam every Sunday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes. Simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
Hello, Philippines, and welcome to the World News Jam right here on DZRJ and RJ TV. My name is Eric Lecain, and I'm joined with 𝗪cie𝗶𝗋𝗀.
Hello, Eric.
Happy New Year, 𝗪cie𝗶𝗋𝗀.
Happy New Year to all of us around the world.
It is another new year here at DZRJ. And here at the World News Jam, we talk about interesting stories going around the world. It's 2024. Now, we are wearing black. Not to say that 2024 looks dim. We just happen to be wearing black. But maybe black in a good way.
Yeah, well, they said black is elegant, especially at night.
All right, so we're going to into 2024 as two elegant people here.
Yes, we have to think,
on the World News Jam.
Well, we need to look at the positive way, make this year the best year ever in our life,
I know I said that last year.
Yeah, you know what?
But this year I mean it.
Yeah, I mean, just do it. Whatever you want to do, this.
as I'm choking on my words. Because we look at last year and the year before that and the year before that. I mean, right now, today, this week, we're looking at some of the biggest stories in the world. And probably the biggest story of this week comes out of the United States, as it is the 3rd anniversary of the attack on the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. And that's made big news this week because, as you remember, 𝗪cie, as we talked about here on the show, when Donald Trump sent his followers over to the Capitol to take back our country, as he said. But this just didn't happen on January 6th. If we remember, it was actually planned. There was an effort to disrupt the certification of the winner of the 2020 election and delay it enough so the Republicans in the House could come up with a way to upend the will of the people. And here it is, 3 years later.
Yes.
And we are still talking about this.
Well, that's a very interesting, topic, Eric, because, who would forget that, insurrection, as they call it.
Yes,
but
insurrection.
they the Republican, of course, they deny that. It's not.
Of course.
Of course, they will, people are like that. Even though you got caught already doing something, you still deny it. I mean, so what do you expect?
Well, I mean, they can deny it, although there was multitude after mountains of videos of watching the Trump supporters smash windows as they stormed into the Capitol. They beat up police with their fists and their flagpoles. They sprayed them with chemicals. They built a hangman's noose outside the Capitol building and chanted about killing Vice President Pence and the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi as they pooped all over the building. But so far, over 1,230 people have been arrested. 890 people have been convicted in that crime. However, the Republicans still say they were just peaceful protesters.
It was not a peaceful protest. I've seen and I've been to some of these protests that are really peaceful. Not that kind. That is not just an ordinary protest. That is really a very obvious insurrection.
If you watch the video, this was not a peaceful protest. Many of the 1,000+ violent protesters, what they were saying was that they were actually FBI agents posing as Trump supporters.
Yes, yeah, that's the very thing that when I heard about that, I laughed and I said, what? I mean, what are they trying to, well, of course they can make up stories,
But the interesting thing is they're still saying it.
Yeah.
And even though there are video cameras all over, and so far no FBI or Antifa, the other person said, had been identified in the plot to pose as Trump supporters to overthrow the government. And the people that were convicted of attacking the Capitol, there is none of them are FBI or Antifa.
Exactly.
The last 3 years, the U.S. government has been looking for those people who made the attack. I mean, Lolly, if you think about it, if me or you walked into the Capitol in the United States and tried to overthrow the government, they would probably put us in jail.
Oh, definitely.
I would think so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but, we are not that type of person, Eric, that you...
No, we probably wouldn't chance that. And Trump right now is calling his followers heroes.
I know,
And he's talking about, if he becomes president, pardoning them. That all they were trying to do was save America.
Save America from what? I mean, it was just an election. He lost the election with a very large margin, and they... of course, they can't accept it, and that's how they, how he probably understand, that, and he made himself believe that he still won.
Well, it's kind of funny because he says these people that attacked the Capitol, they are heroes. They were trying to save America. But then I thought they were FBI agents and Antifa. I don't know. It gets me a little confused sometimes.
But you know what, Eric? When I was watching that, I don't think FBI would do that. I mean, those people that, those...
Well, first thing, the FBI planned this. How could they even know?
How
could they know that, that they would have had to plan it on the spot and had all those agents, it's just a ridiculous thing. But the interesting thing, and we're getting to this here, Trump is trying right now, the wrong Trump is trying to right it himself by, continue this big lie, which is right now has become known as the big lie that he won, that he was cheated in the election. Trump won the White House, which according to the number of votes and all the votes in the courts across the country, Trump definitely lost. There's no question anymore in most people's minds. But people back then and people now, they believe what's known as the big lie, and they still believe it. So on the 3rd year anniversary of the attack on democracy in the United States via its ex-president, the current president, who's been quiet this whole time, hasn't really said much of anything, he gave a speech. And for all those who think that Biden is an old, weak man, he came out swinging for the fences.
Oh, yeah. I mean, did you see him?
I watched that speech.
Yeah, it was, it was a kind of strong type of...
I was very surprised.
Yeah.
That I thought he was going to talk about policy and all the things he's done for the country. No. He said whether democracy is still America's sacred cause is the most urgent question of our time. He wanted to do what many have already done, drawing comparisons between the ex-President Trump and Hitler and anti-democratic actions of dictators. He made a point of mentioning that Trump laughed and made a joke about the violent attack on the former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, who was nearly killed in a break-in attack at their home, beaten with a hammer from someone who was listening to the rhetoric of Trump.
Yeah.
And Biden made an interesting comment. He said, we all know who Donald Trump is. The question we have to answer is, who are we?
Yes. I was really, kind of impressed with that word. Who are we? You are supposed to be the American who should protect your country, your democracy. Because, America is America. But it's like the climate change is changing. The politics in America is, I hope it will not happen what I'm thinking, but
it's like a TV show almost when you watch it. I mean, watching this whole thing unfold, and here we are into the 3rd year after the attack. We're in 7 years after Trump was elected, and this is where we're at. We thought that once he was beaten, he would go away. And a lot of Republicans, we look back at Republicans who condemned the attacks after they happened because they had to run for their lives. And then later they found out that Trump had a chance to stop it, and he refused to stop it. He wanted to perpetuate it. They even called him on the phone and called his sons and other people and officials there and begged him to stop the rioting and to stop the people from attacking. And he was just like, let's just see how this plays out.
Yeah.
But now, after all this time, the same Republicans are embracing Trump.
Yeah, they have all the proof, they have all the evidence, and they're still there to support Trump for what he did. And I was wondering what's get into the mind of these people. I mean,
why?
Yeah, exactly.
And the actual reason as to why, as I believe and many other people believe, is they just want to get reelected, and they think the only way that they can get reelected is to stand by Trump. That if they were to go against Trump, as some have done, first thing they're going to do is they're going to get a nickname.
Oh, yeah.
Trump's going to give him a nickname,
Oh,
and then his followers will turn against him, and then they will need a security detail every time they want to leave their house.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened to other,
So I think, Trump was weakened, and then the Republicans are like, well, okay, we'll as he, kept saying, perpetuating this lie after this lie, and they started to realize that, the front runner, he's now the front runner in the polls, and he's going to be the nominee for president. And it proves the point, and I've said this before, if you tell a lie enough times, it can become the truth. Because let me just say, 1/4 of Americans believe that the FBI were the ones that attacked the Capitol. You know how many people is 1/4?
A lot.
Of the American, and that that crazy conspiracy about the FBI was so easy to debunk. It was just it was so simple because they got video cameras everywhere. They have witnesses everywhere, and yet Trump repeated it over and over until Americans just believe it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I talk again to some people that they believe that first is not insurrection, Trump did a lot of good things for the country, denying all these lies. I mean, sorry, but I'm not going to talk to you anymore because this is not the way I look at America and Americans.
It's interesting, and here again, if you just tuned in, we're talking about Biden's speech on the 3rd anniversary of the attack on the U.S. Capitol, and here again, and especially on this show, we never try and pick one candidate or another. I'm just kind of repeating the facts.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just I don't know what else to say. I don't have to say I don't think you should vote for Trump, which is something we will never say on this show. Yeah. We're just I'm just saying that all the plots of Trump and his people and his lawyers, everything failed, and this was the last chance he had to throw the election into chaos. And so he had his all his people showed up as he asked them to. He asked them all to come to Washington. It will be wild. He got them there. They riled them all up. They told them, everybody run to the Capitol. And this was his chance to overthrow the election. And it didn't work. The military would not get behind Trump, which was the big problem. And the attack was eventually put down. Biden said just yesterday, or the day before yesterday, Trump told the crowd to fight like hell, and all hell was unleashed. Then, as usual, he left the dirty work to others and retreated to the White House.
Yeah.
That is what happened. And now all those people have been arrested, and now a lot of the people that were arrested have come out and said, you know what, we went there because he told us that we needed to take back our country. And honestly, I don't think that he wanted to take back the country for them. I think he just wanted to take back the country for him.
Yeah, exactly. And the word take back the country, from whom? I mean, that's my question. Did anyone take the country? So you want to take it back?
Well, according to Trump, talking to his followers, he was cheated. That the Democrats had a plan to cheat in the election, and somehow they were able to steal votes. People that voted for Trump, they were able to flip them over to Biden, and they were able to steal somehow the votes. And so they sued in every state, contentious state, and they lost every single suit. Why did they lose every single suit? Because there was no evidence in that election that anybody stole anything. In fact, they say it's one of the fairest elections they've ever had in the United States.
Exactly.
And the people that were saying, in Georgia, all these dead people voted. Well, of the dead people that actually did vote, and there were some, they voted for Trump. It's just, and there weren't many. It was something like 5 or 6 or something out of, millions. So I just think that, the MAGA voices who know the truth about Trump on January 6th have abandoned the Trump and abandoned the truth and abandoned democracy. I'm trying to quote this exactly as I can. They made their choice. Now the rest of us, Democrats, independents, mainstream Republicans, we need to make our choice. And this is quoted by Joe Biden the other day, who I expected to talk about something else. And this is what he talked about.
Well, you know what? I think the President Biden, because he's not talking really for a long time because he's busy. He's busy doing his job. There's problem with Ukraine, with Israel, things like that. I mean, all over. So the job of a president is really, you have a lot of things. He's taking care of kind of the whole world. So, but now he get a chance.
Well, now it's election season.
Yeah, exactly. So he came up. I saw him and I said, "Wow, he looked so fresh. With with his demeanor is so impressive."
He still looks old.
Yeah,
still looks old. But it was a fiery Biden, which is something I haven't seen in a while. Where he's saying, you know what, this is not about Republicans versus Democrats, me versus Trump. This is about saving our democracy.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
We are, the democracy of the world. This is what everybody looks to. The United States
yes,
is the democracy of the world, and very soon that democracy is going to be on trial.
Exactly.
As to what's going to happen now. Speaking of the elections and so forth. Donald Trump right now, in a related story, the U.S. Supreme Court has now decided to hear the case about whether or not Donald Trump should be on the ballot of the president in 2024. Now, he's the front runner for the Republican Party, obviously. He is going to win the nomination in Iowa, I'm almost 100% sure. However, 2 states in the United States have already decided to remove Trump from the ballot, and others are about to too. And why is this? You can't just remove somebody from the ballot. I mean, there has to be a reason. The reason is that he doesn't meet the criteria to be president according to the Constitution. Now, the president must be over 35, I believe. You must be born in the United States, which he has. However, it also states in the Constitution that a citizen must not have participated in an insurrection against the U.S. government. And, well, Trump led an insurrection against the government. So according to the Constitution, he is, in the eyes of some states, ineligible to run for president. So Trump's lawyers are suing to have his name returned to the ballot. Now, Lolly, if this doesn't sound insane, I don't know what does.
I know. And they're still, they're trying to argue now because they says in that part of Constitution, president is not mentioned. It's only like the congressman and I think the senator. They're debating on that issue.
It's really getting there because it's a little broad. It's a little broad, but the thing is that the Republican Party has picked for president is currently having to sue to put his name on the ballot. And the U.S. Supreme Court is going to have to interpret what the Constitution really means. Now, to me, I have read that part of the Constitution. It seems pretty straightforward. But, it looks to me, here again, I'm trying not to be biased here, but it looks like Trump has clearly violated the Constitution. But his lawyers, the argument is that it only applies, like you said, to citizens and officials. That at the time of the insurrection, Trump was the president, and he's not an official. He's the president, and so the Constitution doesn't apply to him. Now everybody else is going, you have got to be kidding me that this is your argument. But that is what they are saying. They are saying that because he was the president, he cannot be found guilty of insurrection because he can't be found guilty of anything.
All right. Okay. All right. Granting, Eric, let's make a little debate in here. Not really debate, but you know. All right. I read and I heard about, like, okay, there's a question. What if, okay, Donald Trump will be again, he will be running against Biden again. And now, it will be, according to some reliable source or some friend who said, well, even if Trump will run again, if they will allow him to run, the ballot will be the one to answer if America still wants to have president like Trump, which is true. I believe that. Meaning, during the election, you know, it's the people who will decide who will be the president of the United States again, if they will allow him to be president of the United States.
In other words, saying that it shouldn't be up to the states to decide if he's on the ballot, that they should put him on the ballot, even though, but here's the issue. If they put him on the ballot, then what is the point of the Constitution then? What are they going to do? What are they going to do about the Constitution? They're going to have to just take a pen and just mark out the things that we don't like.
Exactly, Eric. So people are just saying that if ever, okay, if they deny that, they granted that, okay, we'll allow him to run and all that, and then he became the representative of the Republican and against Biden. So it's already, you know, it's already the American people who would decide who would be the next president of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said this a couple of weeks ago. I said that I thought that, you know, when it came up that the states were going to decide whether to put him on the ballot or not, because of the Constitution says that he is ineligible to run as president, because it says very clearly, now here again, it says very clearly in the Constitution that if you're involved in insurrection, now the thing was, when they wrote the Constitution, they never thought of this happening. They never thought that a president would be the one that would be the insurrectionist. So the idea is that in the way that the United States was back in the 1700s, you know, anybody that you know fought against the United States could never lead the United States. So and you know, of course, you had to be born in the United States, which poor Arnold Schwarzenegger, he can't be president. But you know, the issue being that they didn't actually put in the, you know, if the president is involved in insurrection, because they never thought that would ever happen. Who would ever think that? And so now that it's happened, so now, you know, they have to, you know, make a decision. And the thing that makes this so much like a TV show is Trump's lawyers came on television the other day, last week. And they said that some of the justices need to remember who put them there, and they need to make the right decision.
So what does it mean?
You know, and some have already seen this as a threat.
Yes, it is.
By Trump to the justices, that, you know, the justices, you know, if you do not, if you judge against Trump, then you may need to have security detail for the rest of your life.
Oh my goodness! So,
and it is. I mean, nobody believes anymore in the U.S. Supreme Court because they've been so compromised by Trump. You know, and now it's skewed, it's extreme. And now there's this guy that's on the, you know, it's going to be deciding this, whose wife was part of the insurrection. Clarence Thomas's wife was involved in the insurrection, and he's going to be one of the guys voting on this. And they've already, the Democratic officials already said, listen, Clarence Thomas, you need to recuse yourself. your wife was part of this, and he's not going to. So right now, nobody believes in the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, a lot of people don't believe in them anymore, that they are not completely compromised by Donald Trump. You know, before we always looked to the U.S. Supreme Court as they're the final. Now everybody's like, whatever. They're run. They call it the MAGA court now. So, you know, it's interesting. You know, this court is now deciding on the obvious clause in the Constitution on whether the current sitting president can try to overthrow the U.S. Can try and overthrow a U.S. election and then run again. And these people that are on the court were put there by him.
Well. I hope they just do the Supreme Court will do the right thing. I mean, there is a law, there's a constitution. Interpret it very well according to. Not according to Trump.
The problem is, Lolly, if they rule in Trump's favor, then that will negate the Constitution. Then it's like, what's the point of the Constitution?
Yeah, what's the point? Yeah.
And it gives less credence to an already compromised and biased court. That's going to happen no matter what, no matter which way they vote. On the other hand, if they allow states to decide on whether to allow someone involved in an insurrection not to be on the ballot, what will the Republicans do in that state? If their person is not on the ballot, what are they going to do? They not vote? They're not going to vote for Biden. Who they're going to vote for? So it's a weird. I mean, there's no. Here's what I think is going to happen. It's going to be a split decision in the U.S. Supreme Court because they're going to have to. They're not going to be able to say that Trump can't be on the ballot because, like I said, what are the Republicans going to do? Who are they going to vote for in that state? It doesn't make any sense. And so, this is here again. This is my opinion. The DOJ could have taken care of this a long time ago, and they didn't. And they drug their feet on this for years, handling the case. Oh, we don't want to infringe on Trump's rights, and so they waited and waited and waited and waited. And now it's in the Supreme Court. It's too late. It's too late. We're already, we're in the election year now, and so now they're going to try and figure out this whole thing at the last second. And which is part of the issue too with all the criminal cases against Trump. He's got all these criminal cases against him. They waited until now to finally get this rolling.
Yeah, the problem is I think they're all, like what his lawyer is doing is trying to delay. They're doing a delaying tactics.
Of course. That's
very obvious.
If I was Trump, that's what I would do.
Yeah, exactly. So they know what to do. Okay, you just delay this and make an appeal. That's what they're doing.
He's kind of guilty. Unfortunately, I don't know what else to say about those court cases, but they really looks like they got him. In fact, everybody for so many months are like, they got him. They've nailed him. They've got him good. It may never go to trial. It doesn't matter how much evidence they have against him. They're just going to keep delaying it, pushing it into the Supreme Court, and the MAGA Supreme Court. Once the court does what I think they're going to do on Monday, so they're going to talk about this on Monday, and they vote in Trump's favor, and they're going to let him be on the ballot in Maine and in Colorado. And that's going to lead all the other states to that's what they're going to do. Then nobody's going to believe anything that they're going to say anymore. Well, at least half the country. And so, now they're going to have to deal with every one of these court cases because Trump is losing every single one. So he's appealing everything to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's what he gets I think tons of lawyers already working on this case on different, US. I just hope they get paid after. I hope so.
I hope they get paid because Trump doesn't usually pay his lawyers. Speaking of things like that, Trump gave a speech yesterday, and then we'll kind of move on after this, which I want to talk about was the school shooting in Iowa, because Iowa is the first election. That's the first part where they elect the Republican nominee, and that happened the day before his speech. There was a horrible thing that happened in Iowa where a school shooting, a kid died. And Trump came out and he said, that's just horrible, but you people need to get over it. And everybody was like, what did he just say in the state that's about to vote on who the nominee is going to be? And he said, the Republicans, they've been trying to avoid talking about this gun issue ever since the nominee process has been going on. But Trump, he gave a speech at the National Rifle Association. We're getting off the subject here a little bit. And he said, guns are not the problem. The problem is Democrats.
again. Oh my
The
goodness,
problem
this
is
guy.
the Democrats. It's Democrats.
Yeah.
It's people with mental health issues. It's marijuana,
yeah.
and it's transgenders.
Oh, Jesus
The transgenders are the part of the gun problem. That's the part of the reason. But a lot of people are saying, that was even low for Trump.
Oh my goodness.
That was pretty bad. But speaking about being low and getting down to the bottom, Jeffrey Epstein is back in the news.
Oh yeah.
And, we talked about Jeff Epstein quite a bit. He's dead now.
Oh yeah,
as
he's
we know.
dead,
Yeah, he's
but
dead.
still.
But he keeps haunting us in the courts and in the news. Now, just in case you need a refresher, a lot of that have had many discussions about Jeff Epstein. He was this financial multimillionaire having high-profile clients and friends in politics in Hollywood and finance and the tech world, even royalty. The only problem was he really liked the young girls,
Well,
the really young girls.
well, I am not surprised.
And he used to share some of those young girls with his clients.
Jesus Christ.
That is.
Oh my God.
That was a problem. And of course, when you're rich like that, you can sort of do stuff like that
Oh yeah.
before,
Well,
but not so much now. Before you could. Like in 2005, the Florida police started looking into some of these young girls that Epstein was flying around in his private jets, some of which were 14 years old.
wow.
Eventually, he pleaded guilty in 2008 for procuring a child for prostitution and soliciting the prostitutes. But he managed to get this really sweet deal, which I love, this deal that he got. He did 13 months in custody. However, most of that was the work release program, which you think work release, like they're on the highway picking up trash. He was able to make an office. He stayed in the Palm Beach Sheriff's holding area instead of the state prison. He set up an office nearby. And he could work in that office for up to 12 hours a day, six days a week. He could use his own driver. He paid the deputies overtime to guard him, which was $128,000. And the deputies, get this, the deputies were required to wear suits while they were in his office. Fascinating. He was able to, when he moved back to New York, you got to register as a sex offender. And the New York State District Attorney tried to lower his sex offender level from 3, which is high risk, down to 1. And he was told he had to check in every 90 days at the police department, which never happened. But in any case, with rich guys, this is, I would still be in jail. I'd still be in jail right now. Anyway, this dude, he does 13 months where he gets to have his own luxurious office, which he can stay in all the time. And, he has his own driver that takes him from the jail. His jail cell was not locked. It was never even locked. The whole thing's crazy. So anyway, but the problem with these rich guys is they don't know when to say when. You get caught. All right, chill out with that. Anyway, he never stopped seeing the young girls, some as young later as 11.
Wow.
And eventually the FBI got wind of this, and so they got involved, and it turned out there was a whole network of young girls that he would fly over state lines, made it a federal case. So in 2019, Epstein was arrested again, but this time under federal sex trafficking charges, which is much worse. So the FBI raided his home. They broke in. They discovered this safe, and they found everything in the safe: $70,000 in cash, 48 diamonds, fake passport saying he was from Saudi Arabia, thousands of photos and names of girls, CDs with labels like miscellaneous nudes #1, girl pic nudes. Anyway,
Well,
Epstein was busted. He was busted. He asked, I don't know if you know, then you can talk about. He asked for $100 million bail, but he's on federal charges. So the judge was like, no, $100 million. No, we don't believe you. So anyway, 19 days later, in federal detention, cameras and guards all around Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell from apparently hanging himself. And somehow no cameras and guards saw it.
well, that's a problem, when if you're rich, okay, they can probably, I didn't expect this will happen in America, who is supposed to be very strict when it comes to law. But, it's still, if you're rich, things could work. Like that story, he can have his office, he can have still the girls while in prison, which is not really in prison because you are just probably you're there, but you're not really inside the jail because you control them. The people, you pay the people. I mean, well, I don't know that.
$128,000.
Yeah, I mean, why not? He's a very rich man, so he can do this. He can make business even though he's inside the jail, which is also happening in all the jails in all over, even here in the Philippines. Somehow it is happening.
In
we are the
Philippines.
third country.
But I mean, I understand why it happens here. I can't believe something like that happened in Florida. But the question that everybody's always asking is the lists. Who are the names?
Yes.
Who are the people that Epstein took down to that private island that he had, who stayed in his Palm Beach place down there in Florida? And that's always been the question about the stories that we kept hearing about, the wild, crazy orgies, and the list of who was involved. And who did Epstein share his young girls with has always been a mystery. In fact, there was a theory, Lolly, that Epstein tried to make a deal with the government to turn over those names for a lesser sentence, and then, of course, he mysteriously died in a federal holding area, which seems crazy. And then, after the, and then we'll get to why I'm even talking about this today. But, the autopsy, it turns out his neck was broken in several places, which is more common with strangulation. His lawyers did their own investigation and concluded it looked more like a homicide than a suicide. I know we've speculated on this show before about his death. But the camera in the hallway in the front of Epstein's cell was malfunctioning. And the guards did not do their required checks and later pleaded guilty, falsifying records. He also, I didn't know this either, he signed his will and testament on August 8th, and he died on August 10th.
All right, 8, and then he died on 10. So he was forced to make a will, 2 days before he was.
He supposedly paid off a lot of inmates not to kill him because he knew that his life was in danger because he knew he was making this deal. To give up the names of all the guys, and just think of the people he could destroy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why somebody think ahead of it. Why don't we just kill him so he will not, this is very obvious that it's being, well planned that he will get
something fishy's going on here. Anyway, Lolly, last week, documents from the Epstein case were finally released.
Yes.
With the list of the names.
Yes, and who were
those
I'm
people?
Excited, although I know it already.
Yeah.
At least 2 presidents of the United States.
At least 2 presidents.
At least 2.
The stuff about the famed private Epstein Island, where he used to bring the girls. Everyone's talking about who visited that island. Of course, Donald Trump was on that list because he was friends with Epstein. We've seen the videos of him and Epstein dancing at the disco, and then of course Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
But Bill Clinton was supposedly used Epstein's private plane for his foundation, but nobody's been able to prove that he was ever involved in any of the shenanigans or that he even knew about it. So, but. The big one, of course, the stories about Prince Andrew. We knew that was bad, and now more documentation has come out, and it's even worse than we ever thought. Supposedly there's some incident in the document. The prince was with a young girl and a puppet that looked like him. And there's something about what happened with the puppet, which we won't talk about here on the show. But anyway, Michael Jackson was mentioned. He was met by one of the girls in the Palm Beach house. David Copperfield, the famous magician, was at Epstein's house doing some magic. Leonardo DiCaprio, Kevin Spacey, Stephen Hawkins. There's a really crazy conspiracy theory about Stephen Hawkins. Noam Chomsky, Alan Dershowitz, who supposedly had a young girl ordered to have sex with him. Ugh. Anyway, I don't want to he's denied it. So anyway, many of the names have come up from the questioning of the young girls. So they questioned all these young girls because now they know who they all are. And they were saying, well, I met Michael Jackson and I met this person and I met that person.
Well, you know what, Eric, that is possible. Like, for example, you're going to throw a party for the young girls, for example. You're going to invite the popular one, the famous one. Okay, let's say Michael Jackson. But For me, it doesn't, because I don't think, I don't know, Michael Jackson will gonna go into this type of thing. I don't know, but
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either. I mean, most of the people on that list, and that list is long. I mean, I read a few names, but that list has like 100 people on it. And there's some big stars on there. Do I believe that they were involved in...
I don't think so.
I don't think
Maybe
so.
some of them.
He was a rich guy. He had private planes. He would fly people down to his homes and stuff like this. Yeah, okay, fine. There are other rich guys that do the same thing. They have private islands and they fly people down there. So, I think, the only thing that, they did release the list, and there are more documents still to come out. So we haven't seen it all yet. And some of it's redacted, but still, this is the documentation that came from the interviews with the girls that were, many of them are in their 20s now, but at the time they were 14, 13 years old.
My goodness, yeah, very young. I mean, for these girls who are involved in this kind of it's wow, it's sickening to hear this. Rich men.
And the thing that still blows my mind is he got caught. And, okay, he had an easy time in jail, but he got caught. He did 13 months. And then after that, he kept doing it. He just kept going. He never thought that he would have to really face the big-time jail sentence until he got caught by the feds. And then he was looking at doing, 50, 60 years. Wow. And then he tried to make a deal. And then he died.
Well,
so there you go.
Yeah, well, I think the problem there is that he is, can I use the word addicted? Or, for men, somebody like him, or it applies to, all men probably, not all, but, some men, they want younger girls. You
give the average man, what was Epstein worth? $700 million? You give him $700 million. All right. The average man, he might do something like that too. It's hard to say. But I wouldn't say all, but I would think maybe some.
Yeah, maybe some.
It's we are we're basically animals.
Sad to say, but
Sad to say, but human nature. Speaking of human nature, we love to talk about our boys up there in North Korea, and our boy up there in North Korea is at it again. He's making the news again this week when he fired 200 rounds of artillery shells off the coast of North Korea there, going into that part of South Korea. South Korea has called it a provocative act. However, the North says, you're okay. We didn't hit anything. We just shot him into the ocean there. So this is unlike 2010 where they did the same thing and 4 people died. So anyway, now this time they failed short of the island. However, the South Korean officials are saying that their act threatens the peace and raises tensions, and it triggered an evacuation of people because they were just too close. They were too close to the shore. So the North Korea says that they are practicing for war, which could break out at any time, according to the North Koreans. It's true, South Korea, I guess, they're doing drills in the ocean as well. So the North is like, well, if they're doing it, we can do it too. And this comes just after the North Koreans suspended a deal aimed at toning down the military drills. And the reason that the deal got broken up for doing these drills, because we're trying, obviously, we don't want the North Koreans continually doing these drills and shooting missiles into the ocean. And the reason that the whole thing fell apart was because of the spy satellite that we talked about before. North Korea shot a spy satellite up into space, and they were like, hey, everybody else is doing it.
Yeah, might as well do it.
Why can't we do it? And so they did it. And so what happened was, and I didn't realize this until just this week when this news came out, that the part of the reason that this deal broke is as soon as they sent up that spy satellite, the South decided to resume their surveillance flights on the coast of North Korea. And so the North Koreans said, well, if you're doing that, then we'll deploy more powerful armed forces and new military hardware on the borders. And South Korea's like, oh, if you're going to do that. And so anyway, the whole military deal blew up. Honestly, military experts are saying the North really didn't follow it that well anyway. But for right now, North Korea has this spy satellite up in orbit, and this whole thing is premised by this spy satellite that they sent up there, and they supposedly have pictures now. They say. Past Tuesday, North Korea, Kim Jong-un said for the first time he reviewed the spy satellite photos of the White House, the Pentagon, U.S. aircraft carriers, and a naval base that were naval base in Norfolk. Also pictures of Guam, pictures of Italy, and of course pictures of South Korea.
All right, so I wouldn't be surprised, Eric. They're spying on us too. Maybe he's watching the show, right now.
Yes. Kim Jong-un, come on our show. We'd really love to have you.
Yeah, we'll be happy to have you here.
But anyway, experts are very skeptical that any of these photos are any good. And also officials from the U.S. are saying, North Korea, there's plenty of these photos on the web. You just have to look it up. You don't have to send a spy satellite up into the air. You can just go on the Google and just Google it.
Yeah, you can just, like what? You do some kind of, what do you call that? A screenshot?
Screenshot.
Okay, we do. This is this is the White House.
For a lot less money. You get the same thing. But anything, North Korea is also, Russia fired off a bunch of new missiles this year into Ukraine. Surprise, surprise. But this week, a lot of those missiles turned out were made in North Korea.
Yes. When they sent it to Ukraine?
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting that Russia's buying missiles from North Korea. Should I be surprised? I don't know.
Well, for me, no. I'm not surprised at all because, remember they are best of friends.
They are becoming,
remember Putin went to
the best of friends, but now they're becoming very good friends. And, the question, of course, being, why are they becoming such good friends? And it's because, I guess they have so much in common. They're both being sanctioned to death. They're both isolated from the rest of the world.
Yes.
They're both basically in a war. And it stands to reason that eventually they were going to come together sooner or later because who else is going to like them on the playground?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why they have a lot of things in common. And then I wouldn't be surprised someday they will be the best enemy as well.
Yeah, Donald Trump said he was in love with Kim Jong-un. So, and look where that's got us.
Yeah, did you notice, Eric, the people who like each other are they have the same qualities as a person. Look at that. Try to compare even, just regular people. Like, let's say your friends. See, the pattern of being a narcissist. Look at who are among your friends are the narcissists. Look at them. It applies to these people too.
I guess so. Basically, if you're a dictator wanting to take over the world, most likely your friend's either going to be Putin, Kim Jong-un, or Donald Trump. Anyway, so of course the U.S. spokesman made a statement that said it's very concerning of the escalation of North Korea's support of Russia. One of the concerns is that Russia will give North Korea, what they'll do is Russia will shoot the North Korean missiles off, and then they'll give them the information on how well they worked.
Yeah.
And tell them, hey, you know what? This one's off by a little bit. Move this one here. This is how far we can able to shoot that one. We shot that one this many kilometers without having to test them. So and then Russia can test them in real life situations of war.
Yeah.
So and then they're going to give that information to North Korea, and that's what's concerning the United States.
Yeah. So the U.S. has really to be they're always on the lookout anyway. So they're monitoring everybody around the world. So we'll see.
And speaking of not wanting to fly, speaking of missiles, or I don't know how this is related in any way, but there was a flight this week from Oregon to California. And when they hit, let's just say you're on this flight, it hit 10,000 feet, and a whole part of the plane breaks off.
Oh.
And a giant hole the size of a refrigerator opens up in the side of the plane, and you're sitting there, and then immediately the whole plane depressurizes, and the masks drop down.
Yeah, that one.
And you're trying to remember, oh my God, what did they say at the speech at the beginning of the flight? I wasn't listening. I was paying attention. I was listening to Netflix. So anyway, that happened last week on an Alaskan Air flight. All of a sudden, they took off. They got to 10,000 feet, and a whole side of the plane came off.
How did it happen? I mean, what's wrong with the plane?
I know. They don't know. I mean, it's just happened. So we don't know. It's amazing. Like this, mother sitting there with her son. The boys, because when the hole blows open and a plane depressurizes, what happens? Everything gets sucked out of the plane.
Yeah.
So people had their seatbelts on because they just took off. Thank God. But everybody's stuff went out the door, and this young boy, his shirt came off. And shot out the door, and he lost his cell phone too. His cell phone came off,
yeah.
and his mother was holding on to him, make sure he didn't fly out of the seat.
Yeah.
But anyway, people started texting their loved ones saying goodbye. We're gonna die. But the crew stayed very calm, and everyone, all 171 people on the plane, they all survived.
Good, but a good thing. That's why when I think this, because sometimes remember when we are inside the plane already, we normally take off our seatbelt. I think that's why this is very important. Well, although we are always reminded when we sit down. Okay, the flight attendant will show you how to, because there must be some people who first time in the flight, so they should know what to do.
I know, and every time I watch those stewardesses do the seatbelt demonstration, I want to turn around and go, all right, who is dumb enough on this plane that cannot do that, figure that out on their own? But now,
this is
it's true. It's true. We
need to.
The seat. How a lot of people are killed on planes is when the plane drops down.
Yes.
And they don't have their seatbelt on, and they fly up and hit the ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why whether you don't like it very much, especially if you are in the long flight.
Yeah.
I got bored too. I mean, coming from, let's say, from the Philippines, or let's say from Japan to, let's say, go to California or the East Coast. My goodness, it takes how many hours sitting? I mean, that's why sometimes
I fly to New York all the time. Talk about how long.
Yeah, I can imagine how long. So,
But interesting enough, Alaskan Air, they feel they got to do something. So for right now, they are grounding all their Boeing 737-9s, the whole fleet.
Yeah, they have to do that and
but
check it
until
out.
they figure out why.
Yeah.
Why a whole side? It wasn't a door. It wasn't a door that flew off. It was a panel. It was an entire panel that flew off, about the size of a refrigerator. And but they managed to get that thing to the ground. But everybody survived. But the question that we have is India still survivable? Now, we're jumping subjects here, but we keep saying this over on the show. We keep talking about climate change, and we are to our climate change subject now. And we keep saying that, there's a sentence that we say a lot on the show. We always go, it's the hottest on record. And we've been saying that a lot. Well, India now is having the hottest on record. And they are suffering from the heat. The heat. They have had day after day of plus 40-degree heat. There in India. Schools are closing, crops are dying, they're shutting down, emergency supplies are like overloading. And the question is becoming now, how long can people survive in those kind of conditions? According to climate experts, by the year 2050, India might not be survivable by humans.
Wow.
Saying that their need for air conditioners will rise 9 times. And it all adds to the question, where is all that energy going to come from when they keep having to get the air conditioners? And the paradox being, the hotter it gets, the more air conditioners they get. And the more air conditioners they get, the more carbon dioxide goes into the air, and the hotter it gets.
Yeah. Wow.
So, currently, this is another, I'm reading these stories about India this week because this is big news this week, that India has just gotten so ridiculously hot that people just can't survive. And India is not like, the United States. India's got how many more people than the United States? I mean, they are,
How many million?
They are the most populated country in the world right now.
Yeah, they're number one now.
They're number one right now. And
after, before it was China.
China. And now China does not have the most people. So they're having more babies there in India. But the interesting thing is that India contributes 7% of the global emissions into the air. We've talked about this before. And the U.S. is around 13%, yet the U.S. has a quarter of India's population. And we've talked about this in regards to the Philippines, which, should poor countries hold the brunt of the cost for dealing with these high heat things that might have been caused by richer countries. I mean, these climate change issues were not caused by the Philippines or, some of these smaller countries. They were caused by China and the U.S. Yet, some of the poor countries are the ones that have to pay the price.
Well, that's the thing. We are the one that would get, somehow suffer at some point. But then that's why every country should do their own share. I mean, what can we do? I mean, what are the things that we can do to minimize this kind of climate change? Like they said, you have to plant trees. We need to... Well, the good thing about the Philippines is because we're surrounded by water. Even though the whole year, it's really hot. It's not that hot, actually.
Honestly, I've lived in the United States where it's freezing cold in the winter and super hot in the summer.
Yes.
And the Philippines never gets anywhere near the
at
temperature that it does get in the United States, and that's because of course, where the Philippines is located on the globe. Where the United States is above the equator. When the Earth spins, obviously it gets closer to the sun than the Philippines ever does. But in any case, I mean, when you look at the fact that places like Europe and China and the United States are causing the climate issues, then these poorer countries have to buy more air conditioners because they're hot now. And then their energy consumption. They're saying that the problem in right now is that in India, the jobs are in agriculture. The workforce in agricultural jobs is 50%. And that's suffering now because obviously it's too hot and they're having problems with the crops and so forth. So everybody's going to the urban cities. And they go to the urban cities and everybody, gets air conditioners. The energy consumption has increased 21% between 2019 and 2022. And they're saying by 2050, India's energy consumption will be more than the entire continent of Africa. So, added to the fact that, with all this progress, India is still a poor country. And more people could fall into poverty because of the greenhouse gases that are continuing to rise over India. So this, it's a crazy thing to think about. Even though we think that we're, doing all this stuff to help the environment, instead, right now it's because we're making it worse. It's making it even more worse. So because it's getting hotter, so the way to deal with it is don't have an air conditioner. But you can't not have an air conditioner because humans can't deal with it.
Exactly. I mean, like here, during summer it's really, really hot. So you need air conditioning. I cannot stay in a place like really hot, even especially in your room.
I mean, and this is another thing I want to talk about before we have to stop here today. Have you noticed, Lolly? We always try to do a health segment here. Have you noticed that everybody's sick?
Yes.
And I started thinking about this. I said, everybody I know is sick. So I looked it up, and sure enough, the flu is way up in the Philippines. It's 45% higher this past 2023 than it was in 2022. And generally, the flu season is from June to December. But it's just that so many people are getting sick now. Spain, last part of 2023, flu surged 75%.
Wow.
In Spain, overloading hospital. Australia having one of the worst flu seasons ever. The U.S. holiday season, which just passed, become one of the worst flu seasons ever. They count 4,500 flu-related deaths in 2023 to 2024 in the holiday season. So since the flu season started, and a lot of people blame this on extreme weather.
Probably, yeah. Because isn't it that when it's getting cold, a lot of people get sick?
Yeah, it's getting cold, or it's getting, like here in the Philippines, when the weather changes so drastically, especially in rainy season, whatever. People seem to get sick more. But I just noticed that everybody I know seems to be getting sick. And they say that the H1N1 is making a big comeback, and RSV, these viruses that we talked about here. Now, I know we always talk about COVID, but everybody I know seems to be sick. And you look at the map of the United States where they say, you know, the flu is worse here, and you look at it, and the whole country seems to be covered with the darkest one, almost the entire country. So anyway, everybody try wash your hands and try not to be around people. And they were saying, you know, what should we get tested for, the flu or COVID? And you know what the CDC is saying? Get tested for everything.
Yeah, actually. Well, you know what? I think, thank God I had my flu shot every year now, so I'm kind of, you know, I'm okay with that. But I do get a fever and I got colds because it's probably the season. I
know. Well, in any case, Lolly, don't get sick. I'll try not to get sick either, so we don't have any sick. Everybody out there, please don't get sick from the World News Jam here on DZRJ and RJTV, because we got to come back next week, and we want you to come back and watch us as well. We don't want you to be sick. So everybody, be safe out there. And for now, I'm Eric Lecain, and Lolly Tolentino will be here next week here on the World News Jam on DZRJ. So hope to see everybody then, and we will see you next week.
The views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those of the station.